For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Please be seated. I want it understood that by the time we hear this conversation between Jesus the Messiah and Pontius Pilate the governor, Jesus has been beaten within inches of his life. I want you to imagine Jesus with an eye swollen shut, face marred by blood, teeth busted, his wrists and feet burned by bonds of rope or chafed with chains. His entire body is scraped, cut, bruised, and broken, his mind racing, ripped, and rattled. That he is able to speak and speak cleverly and wisely, with care and even lovingly to Pilate, is a minor miracle. Our verse begins in verse 33, but in John 18:12, the story picks up. Jesus is arrested and sent to Annas, father-in-law and predecessor of the high priest Caiaphas. And I have to think his arrest wasn't exactly pleasant. Even if Jesus went peacefully, his captors were likely less mannered. In verse 22, Jesus is struck explicitly for the first time. Jesus responds, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong, but if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" In verse 24, Annas has him bound and sent to Caiaphas, where the other Gospels speak to more unpleasantness. There he's spit on and struck. There he's blindfolded and beaten. Finally, in John 18:28, the mob takes him to Pilate to be lynched, to be crucified. And it's at Pilate's headquarters where this conversation happens. Blinded, beaten, battered, bruised, and broken, Jesus holds up his bonds to tell Pilate and all the powers that be that he was born for this, to testify to the truth. Though blinded, beaten, battered, bruised, and broken, the truth he speaks endures. Our culture is awash in lies, in misinformation, in pseudoscience, and nonsense. Our culture is drowning in untruth, and the selfishness and cruelty from which it springs, and which that untruth enables. And yet, though blinded, beaten, battered, bruised, and broken, the truth endures. May we have the courage to do as Jesus does and testify to the truth. See, Pilate serves here as a stand-in for all the powers and principalities of earth. For all their supposed strength, these powers are trapped by a need for nonsense. Pete Peary, the former pastor of First Presbyterian in Asheville, North Carolina, wrote, quote, "Trapped, Pilate has to hide his true convictions, hide his honest questions, and hide his haunting fears," unquote. Pilate flogs and beats Jesus, or rather orders him flogged and beaten, to get something out of him. Pilate needs something, anything, to placate the mob and its jealous bloodlust. Something, anything, to assuage the other Roman powers that be breathing down his neck to keep order. Something, anything, to calm his wife and her dream of disaster. Something, anything, to quiet his own conscience. It doesn't have to be true. What is truth? Pilate says in a line the lectionary omits. It doesn't have to be true. It just has to work. Jesus refuses to justify his own torture, drawing strength from a kingdom not of this earth that Pilate simply cannot understand. We too search for the lines, for the something, the anything that will get us to what we want. Our words don't spring from our convictions, which we must hide. They don't spring from our questions, which reveal weakness and so can never be honest. Our words don't even spring from our fears, which we can never show and so continue to haunt us. Our words just have to work. They don't have to be true. What is truth? We and too many politicians say. And so we remain as trapped as Pilate, far from the truth which sets us free. Though we are drowning in lies and in misinformation, in pseudoscience and nonsense, Jesus reaches down for us as he did for Peter, to help us find the courage and the faith to testify to the truth. For the antidote to so much cultural nonsense is truth, plainly spoken. Truth, reported and proclaimed. Truth, whispered through lips broken and beaten. Truth, shouted from the rooftops. Our phrase, "speak truth to power," comes from a pamphlet, "Speak Truth to Power," a Quaker search for an alternative to violence, published by the American Friends Service Committee in 1955. The truth spoken there, the text reads, is an ancient one, that love endures and overcomes, that hatred destroys, that what is obtained by love is retained, but what is obtained by hatred proves a burden. I say to you that it doesn't matter who occupies the halls and seats of supposed political power. I repeat, it does not matter who occupies the halls and seats of supposed political power. Our vocation as Christians is the same: to expose them as Jesus exposed Pilate, to proclaim the ancient truth to power, that power without love is no power at all. But truth cannot be spoken to power unless it is routinely spoken among Christians, among us. Be honest. Be honest about your convictions. Be honest about your questions. And be honest about your fears, lest you be just as trapped as every Pilate. Take the risk that others will understand. The problem with our society is not that people don't listen. Too many people have simply heard enough nonsense to bother to listen to anyone anymore. The problem with our society is that people don't talk about the things that really matter to them. So speak to that. Testify to the truth in a world drowning in untruth will listen. Jesus says, everyone who belongs to the truth, and we all belong to the truth, listens to my voice. Hear me. It doesn't matter who occupies the halls and seats of supposed political power. Our Christian vocation is the same. Testify to the truth. Speak it plainly, report it, proclaim it, whisper it through lips broken and beaten, shout it from the rooftops. For each of us must choose between Jesus and Pilate, between the one who is the way, the truth, and the life, and the one who pretends to it, between the one blinded, beaten, battered, bruised, and broken, and the one who ordered that breaking, between truth and untruth. The Christian looks upon the face of Jesus and tells the powers that be that Jesus is the ruler of the kings of earth. To him was given glory and dominion and kingship. To him and no other. The Lord is king, and no one else. Though blinded, beaten, battered, bruised, and broken, here is my king. Here is my Lord. And everything else is nonsense.